Good guys, welcome. The schedule's a little off this week. You know, usually we wanted to do this every Thursday. I think we might change it to Wednesdays though. But this week it's Monday. Baruch Hashem, it's an unusual week. As long as we're learning. So I want to tell you guys a few things here. I want to give you a short Zera Shimshon, and then I want to expand one very interesting idea at the end. Be'ezrat Hashem. Stick around. It says in the beginning over here, he starts with Pasuk. This is the Rush Gimel in the blue versions. Pasuk, Vayeshev Yosef et dibatam ra'ah el avihim. Yosef would bring the bad reports to his father Yaakov about the brothers. Whatever they did that wasn't so kosher.
In English, he would snitch.
Call it a snitch, call it a tattletale, whatever you want to call it.
Lashon hara.
Is it lashon hara? It's a question, because when you tell it, when you report such a thing to the person's authoritative figure, like his parent or his rabbi, it's not necessarily lashon hara, because the point is that the rabbi or the parent wants to know this so they can improve the child. And so it's constructive. So bottom line, Yosef went ahead and did it, and his brothers didn't like him for that.
See, like you said, it's constructive, but the Torah makes it point out. Rashi reports it as if it was for destructive purposes, like he got some sort of pleasure out of it.
I don't remember seeing that Rashi, that he got pleasure out of telling these things. But let's see. Actually, no, I think you might be right. You might be right. I have to double check. But either way, there is a Rashi he brings on this pasuk that he's going to analyze. The Rashi says like this on this pasuk. But Rashi, Uvishloshtan laka, and all three of these things he got punished. Al diba shesiper alehem shem ochlim ever min achai etc. V'yishchatu se'ir ezim u'mechanato v'chulei. So he doesn't bring the whole Rashi here, but on the bottom here we have the whole Rashi. I'm going to read the Rashi to you. What did he used to tell his father? What bad reports did he bring to his father about the brothers?
As if they were withdrawing.
Says the following. Edi b'tam ra'ah, Rashi writes, Kol ra'ah shahaya ro'eh be'achiv be'echav. Any bad thing he saw about his brothers, b'nei le'ah. Which brothers? The sons of Le'ah, those 6 sons, right? Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, Zvulun. Haya magid le'aviv. He would tell his father, what was it? Shayu ochlin ever min ha'chai. He reported to his father that they would eat ever min ha'chai, a limb from a live animal. That's a big isur, not only in the Torah, but also for any person after the generation of Noach. It's one of the 7 laws b'nei Noach. You're not allowed to cut an animal's leg off or any organ off while it's still alive and eat it. That's ever min ha'chai. That's cruel. It's improper. The animal was killed improperly. It's a big sin. And Yosef saw that his brothers did, whatever he thought he saw. He thought he saw his brothers do this, and he would report this to Yaakov. That's number 1. What's the next thing? He used to tattle on the 6 brothers, the sons of Le'ah, that they would disrespect the sons of the shefachot, of the other 2 concubines, subwives, whatever you want to call them, Bilha and Zilpah. Right? So there's 4 sons total. Gad, Asher, Dan, Naphtali. So those 6 would belittle those 4 and call them slaves. They would call them avadim, and Yosef reported this to his father. What's the third thing? Vechashudim ala arayot. Yosef told his father that those 6 brothers were suspect on immoral relations, on sins of immoral relations. How could this actually be? I don't want to get into it too much now because Zera Shimshon is not really going into that. However, if you want to look into a very interesting place, the Orah Hayim Kadosh has an amazing commentary where he explains all 3 of these things, how they were actually a misunderstanding completely. Yosef watched them do these 3 things, but really the way they were doing it was actually in a kosher way. Says the Orah Hayim, as a side point. For example, the every menachai, that law of not eating a limb from a live animal only applies to a regular existing animal. But not to an animal that was created by yourself, which means Avraham Avinu, right? There's a legend that he wrote the.
Scare the fans right now.
He wrote the Sefer.
You gotta give them the introduction about how you create yourself.
He wrote the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation, and it says over there that the brothers knew how to use it, and they used the book of creation to create animals from the earth, from the dust, create cows. Those cows, no laws apply, no shlita, no every minachai b'chavod. So that's what they used to eat from, and Yosef saw that and he didn't know. He used to report that to his father. That's number 1. The other one was what was the second one? that they belittled the sons of the shfachot, that they called them slaves. I forgot exactly how the Or Chaim explained it, but he explained it in such a way where they weren't doing bad. Again, same kind of idea where Yosef was misunderstanding.
Something about if you're a concubine and you're a child from a concubine, and those kids are technically considered to be.
You're right. So Ayin Sham, checking the Or Chaim, but right now we're looking at the Zera Shimshon. Look what he says over here. Further. Kashe, this is a question. How can this be? He says, Mashen nilka Yosef b'shchitat sa'ir. I didn't finish the Rashi. Slicha, let me finish the Rashi. So for each one of these three things that he suspected his brothers to be doing, these three sins, he got punished in his life in the same kind of category. What was it? Says Rashi, on the fact that he was reporting to his father that they were eating ever minachai. When they sold him, we're going to see when they sold him, they took a sa'irizim, took a goat, shechted it, and they dipped the special cloak in the blood to prove to his father that he was killed. So that was one. Shlita, right? Because that's the whole point. The point is that when you eat an animal, you're not supposed to eat it through every minachai. You're supposed to eat it through shchita, proper killing of the animal. Once you do shchita, then you can eat the animal. So that's what they did. They took the goat, the brothers shechted the goat, and they dipped his blood, dipped the cloak in the blood. And they didn't eat it like that. They didn't eat it ever minachai. They ate specifically shchita. They did to the goat. So they're trying to prove it to him that we didn't do bad. That's one. And on the fact that he told his father that the 6 brothers were calling the 4 brothers slaves, because there were sons of Bilhan Zilpah. What does it say? Yosef. It says in Tehillim, Yosef was sold as a slave. He himself went into slavery. He himself was sold to the Arabs, Midyanim, and then eventually Potiphar and Egyptians. He was himself sold as a slave. And then the last thing he claimed about them, that they were suspect on immoral relations. And of course, the Midah Kenemidah there is the famous episode with Yosef when the wife of Potiphar raised her eyes and looked at him, says the pasuk, and then he got into a whole, debacle over there about that test with Potiphar's wife. Says the Zera Shimshon, he has a question on this Rashi. מה נקרא יוסף בשחיטת השעיר זה דבישלמה על מה שסיפר עליהם שהיו קוראים לאחיו עבדים ניחא שנקרא לעבד. Meaning it all makes sense. All 3 of these quote unquote punishments that came to him make sense except for one of them. Meaning the fact that he got sold into slavery as a punishment for saying that they were calling their brothers slaves, that makes sense. He felt a direct result of that. He directly felt the retribution. He got sold into slavery. The other one was the arayot, that he suspected them of doing immoral relations. He himself got involved in a serious situation of immoral relations with his master's wife. So he himself felt that. But when it comes to the Ever Minachai, what did he feel? He didn't get shechted, no limb got cut off of him, What happened over there? So they shechted the goat and they dipped his cloak in there. Big deal. He didn't feel anything there. There was no direct punishment that he felt over there. So it doesn't fit with the other 2, says the Zera Shimshon. That's his question. Malakut, who's there, Yosef? What damage did he receive from this? Af im nomar shechatu lefanav kodem mechato. Even if you want to tell me that they shechted the goat right in front of Yosef before they sold him, so what? Big deal. Yosef didn't feel any direct punishment from that. How is that connected to the other 2? Furthermore, lama techef umiyad shachatu sa'irizim. Side question, he says, why did they shecht that goat immediately? Why didn't they wait later on? Another question, he says, he takes something that was written in a sefer called Zera Berach, and the name of his Rabbi Moharan. I believe this Moharan is the famous Moharan, Rabbeinu Nachman Vayeshev. So this person who wrote the sefer is his student. So he writes something about the parasha, and the Zera Shimshon has a question on it. What does he write? The Sar Gadol Yesh Barakia Amon Mino. There's a certain ministering angel in Shamayim whose name is Amon Mino, he says. And he's the representative of Egypt. He's the right. Every nation in Shemaim has a representative. This angel, his name is Amon Mino, and he is the representative of Egypt. And it says, "Ve'ahaz biyad yamin sa'ir izim." It says that he held, this angel in Shemaim held in his right hand a goat. Shaya mikatreg ba al mechilat Yosef sheshachatu sa'ir izim akal nishano. And he was a mikatreg, meaning he was instigating, he was prosecuting against the Jewish nation in Shemaim regarding this goat on the sin that the brothers of Yosef, which is the majority of Israel, right, sold Yosef. So on that sin that they sold Yosef, he was holding that goat. In the bottom here, they actually bring that sefer. So I'll show you what it writes here, his actual words, to explain about this angel. It says, "Matzati inyan nechmad v'tov le'askir b'sefer mori v'rabbi ish Elohim Muharan." Right, the student of Nachman says that I found in his books the following: the Sar Gadol Yesh B'Rakia Amon Mino. This angel is called Amon Mino. V'hu Sar Gadol Shel Mitzrayim. He's the representative of Egypt. Ve'achaz biyad yamin se'ir izim she'ayek mekateg ba al mechilat Yosef shechatu se'ir izim. In his right hand, he's holding a goat, and with that, he's instigating against the Jewish people for doing the sin of selling Yosef. Uviyad small, and in his left hand, ayil, he has a ram. Lekatreg ala kedat Yitzchak she'ailu ayil temunato. He's instigating against the Jewish people as well. That why was it a ram sacrificed an Akedat Yitzchak instead of Yitzchak himself? Right? God commanded Yitzchak, not a ram.
This angel is doing Janganose.
Exactly. This angel is doing Janganose, exactly what it says. Uchtiv, and it says furthermore, that's their job, by the way. They're supposed to do that. Right? Certain angels do that, certain angels, Sanegorim, they defend. That's their purpose. Uchtiv, and it says further in Devarim, Lo tachsom sho b'disho. There's a isur in the Torah that while the ox is threshing for you your wheat, you're not allowed to muzzle him. Which means if he wants to eat while he's threshing, you're not allowed to prevent that. You have to let him eat. Fine? But he connects it here how? They already gave Yitzchak, meaning Yitzchak was supposed to be appointed to be sacrificed, not the ram. ובא משה רבינו עליו השלום, שהיה בעל הצאן, והעביר את העיל מיד שמאל בשחיטת של Pesach. And when Moshe Rabbeinu came along in his time, and he did the first Korban Pesach, he organized the first Korban Pesach in history in Egypt, that was enough to remove the ram from the left hand of this angel, meaning he no longer could instigate from that anymore. Meaning that fixed it. But the goat that was in his right hand, that was there because the brothers sold Yosef, it's still standing in its place. Meaning he's still doing Janganose, he's still instigating against the Jewish people because of that sin. But he got paid back in the time of the destruction of the second temple. Etc. Meaning, what fixed the sin of selling Yosef? The death of the 10 big chachamim. Rabbi Akiva was amongst them and others. They all died terrible deaths at the hands of the Romans. And the Ari teaches that each one of those 10 got an infusion, a certain spiritual infusion of the souls of one of the brothers. And then when they experienced their terrible death, that was a rectification for the brother's sins. Beseder. That's the point of this angel. His point is, he wants more clarification of this whole angel and his whole role. Zera Shimshon wants clarity on that. Further, he says later on, we're going to teach you that Yosef had a little bit of ga'ava over his brothers. He was a little haughty over his brothers.
That's the pleasure then, when he was thinking, no?
Perhaps. Be'omro ki ilolehu yiyu kulam misurim b'yad Esav. Why is that? Why did it have this ga'ava? Because it was known that if it wasn't for Yosef, Esav would have full power and dominion over Am Yisrael. Yosef is the nemesis of Esav. Mm-hmm. You know how? I'll tell you how in a second. Ki Yosef hu setano shel Esav. Yosef is the nemesis of Esav. He's the weakness, the kryptonite, if you will. Right? Look at what it says over here. Rashi brings it down actually in Pasuk Bereshit Lamed Chaf Hey 30:25. It says the following: Kashir yalda Rachel et Yosef. Remember last week's parasha. When Rachel gave birth to Yosef, when Yaakov and his family were still living by Laban, that's when Yaakov got up and said, "Okay, time to go." When Yosef was born, time to go. Why? Because Yosef, he knew that he had the special power of being the nemesis against Esav, who was his enemy trying to kill him, right? Mishodad Sitano Shel Esav, Shnei as it says, where's the source for this? The source is in the prophet Obadiah. Obadiah is a prophet. Chapter 1, Pasuk 18, it says over there, V'haya bet Yaakov ish, and it shall be, says the prophet. The house of Yaakov is like a fire. Uvet Yosef lehava, and the house of Yosef is like the flame of the fire. Uvet Esav lekash, and at that point, the house of Esav will be like straw. That easily burns by the fire. Which means the prophet says, and then, what is this hinting at really? The Mekubalim teach. It teaches about the future, the climax of history that we're all waiting for. One of the Mashiachs. Why do I say one of them? There's two Mashiachs. There's Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. Mashiach ben Yosef is going to be a direct descendant of Yosef. He's going to lead Am Yisrael in the war against Esav and all his powers that are going to attack. The whole world is going to attack Am Yisrael. That's according to one explanation. And Mashiach ben Yosef, he's going to be one to lead the war against them. And as of right now, the prophet says that he's not going to make it. That this Mashiach is not going to make it. That's where there's special tefillot. And Mashiach ben Yosef is not going to make it. That's where the special tefillot, special tukkunim that people do, that they try to change that they try to make it so that Hashem will protect him, that he'll make it. But either way, after him is going to come the Mashiach that we always spoke about, which is Mashiach ben Yehuda, the ben David actually, but comes from the line of Yehuda, who's going to be the king, the prophet, the Talmid Chacham, the leader, world leader, right? So that's the difference between them. So that's what this pasuk Rabbi is hinting at. Mashiach ben Yosef. Beseder. Mishal Yosef batach Yaakov behagdosh baruch hu b'natzal leshuv. Exactly. That's why Yaakov got up and left when Yosef was born. So that because of that fact, Yosef had a little bit of gava. He says, "You guys need me. In the future, you guys need me. You can't get rid of me. My lineage is going to save all you guys." Right? Fine. Ve'esav nekra Sa'ir. And furthermore, another point here is that Esav has many names. One of his names is called Sa'ir. Sa'ir is literally the place where he went to live at the end of last parasha. He went to Sa'ir. The guy's name was Sa'ir. He was the king over there, and Esav and his people took over basically. He's called Sa'ir, but for other reasons as well, as we see. Kamoshe Amru b'Midrash, it says in the Midrash Abba, ala pasuk. There's a pasuk which he doesn't bring fully here, but it says over here regarding the Yom Kippur service. Parashat Acharei Mot in the beginning over there speaks about the specific Yom Kippur service that was done in the temple. There were two goats. Sa'ir, by the way, means goat. Means billy goat. It also means hairy. Each Sa'ir, we're going to see a hairy man, that was Esav. All these words are connected. Right? So it says over there in the Yom Kippur service, you have two goats. One goat gets a special sacrificial protocol to Hashem. The other one gets another protocol where they throw him off a cliff to appease Azazel. Right? The Yetzer Hara. And Satan and all these, Yetzer Hara, Satan, Esav, Laban, they're all on the same team. The same group over here. It says over there the pasuk, "V'samach Aharon et shtei yadav al rosh ha'sa'ir hachai v'yitvada alav et kol avonotav avonot bnei Israel." That Aharon HaKohen, the Kohen Gadol, he has to lean his hands upon the goat, the Sa'ir, that goes to Hashem, and both of them actually. I'm sorry, both of them, and then all the sins are transferred. All the sins of Am Yisrael are transferred upon the goat. And the end of the verse says, "V'natan otam al rosh ha'sa'ir." He shall place those sins on the head of the goat. And the kavanah is what? Ha'sa'ir, on the head of the goat. The kavanah is, another interpretation is on the head of Esav, because that's another one of his names. Why? Because it says regarding Esav, "Hen Esav achi ish sa'ir." When Rivka was telling Yaakov, you have to do this trick and dress up like Esav. Before she said dress up like Esav, she said you have to go walk in and claim that you're Esav and get the benachot from your father Yitzchak. Yaakov said, but my brother is ish sa'ir. My brother is a hairy man. My father is going to come feel me and he's going to understand. He's Yitzchak Avinu. He's not, he'll figure it out. So then she told him, don't worry. But the point is that he called him ish sa'ir, the same word, sa'ir. That's his name. Therefore, once the brothers sold Yosef, miyad shahatu sa'ir izim lefanav. That's where they went ahead and they took a goat, specifically sa'ir. They took a goat and they shechted him. They shechted him, meaning they're showing their power over the goat. Meaning, we don't need you, Yosef. We can handle Esav ourselves.
Yes.
You understand?
So he did have connection to that.
To that what?
Mida. Can I get Mida?
Yes.
He proved it with that case.
Exactly. לרמוז לו שבידם יש כוח. We have the power as well. לנצל מיד הסעיר, to beat the sa'ir, which is the sav, which is also the goat. על ידי מעשים הטובים, through our good mitzvot. כי על ידי שהשחיטה, because through the שחיטה itself, which is a mitzvah itself, שהיא מצווה, יתחלש כוח הסעיר. The power of Esav will be weakened, which means shchita itself is a mitzvah. Right? Hashem says, if you want to eat meat, you have to do shchita. This is a mitzvah. Whenever you're doing that, you're fulfilling that mitzvah. So they're showing them, we know how to do mitzvah. We don't eat ever minachai like you claim about us. We do shchita properly. So he's killing two birds with one stone, the brothers. They were showing them, number one, we do mitzvot, not like you said. And number two, we can beat the sa'ir. We can beat Esav without you. Fine. That's why, dafka, the goat. וכלפי מה שכתבו המפרשים שטעם איסור אבר מן החי הוא כדי שלא יתהווה בנו מידת אכזריות המגונה. Based on the other reason, it says, what's the reason, one of the reasons why you're not allowed to do ever min achai? Why did the Torah prohibit you from eating a limb from a live animal before killing it properly? Because it says the Sefer HaChinuch, it increases the midah of akhzariyut. How do you translate akhzariyut? Like brazenness, like complete aggressive, brazen, very, arrogant. I guess arrogant. It's hard to explain.
Like cannibalism, basically like complete disrespect.
Right, meaning it's not just improper. It's a completely improper behavior to cut off an animal's limb and eat it while it's suffering over there. It's not proper. That's one of the reasons. What? It's cruelty. Cruel. Maybe that's the word. Cruel. Yesh lomar. Based on this, you can say, שיוסף סיפר לאביו שהיו אוכלים אבר מן החי. Why did Yosef tell his father that the brothers were doing אבר מן החי? שהיה מתיירא פן יחשוב אביו בליבו שהטעם שכל אחיו שונאים ליוסף יהיה מחמת שראו בו איזו עבירה. So he was afraid that his father would think, why are all the brothers, all my sons against my favorite son Yosef? Why are they all not like him? Maybe because they found Yosef doing a certain sin. Maybe because Yosef is not so clean, and that's why they saw that and they don't like him. So Yosef, in order to reverse that line of reasoning, to reverse that logic, he said,
competition between the brothers.
Brothers are always in competition, sibling rivalry. Shemitzvah lesunato. Why? And they would be justified in their hating him. Because in certain situations, the Gemara says, certain situations, you're allowed to hate a person. You're allowed to hate a person. It says over here, I'll show you the Gemara. It says over there, if you see that your friend is doing something very immoral, Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, Amar Rav, Mutar lesonato. You're allowed to hate him. Shneimar, based on the pasuk that says in Shemot, Ki ter'eh chamor son'acha rovetz tachat masa'o. There's a mitzvah in Torah that says, if you see the donkey of your hated one, the donkey of whom you hate, that is really crouching under the huge load that it has upon it, says the Torah, Azov ta'azav imo, make sure you go help him unload it. Nevertheless, the Torah calls this person sona'acha, one whom you hate. Mashma, the Torah condones that, yes, in certain situations, you may hate. Right? And what is that? But then the Gemara says, hold on a second. It says in another pasuk, you shall not hate your brother in your heart. So one pasuk tells me there's a situation where you can hate someone. Then another pasuk says, don't hate your brother in your heart. Contradiction. Gemara says, no, it's not a contradiction. Ela lav ki hai gavna isn't in the following case. Dechazya be Ihu davar erva, is that when you see him doing something very immoral, then you can hate him. Otherwise, you shouldn't hate your brother in your heart. That's the point. Right? So bottom line, Yosef thought that his father might think that his brother saw him do a sin, and that's why they hate him, because they're allowed to hate him when you see someone doing a moral thing. Fine. And maybe he's afraid, maybe even Yaakov, my father's going to hate me because of that, because they're going to think I'm a sinner. That's why he told his father that the brothers are eating ever minachai. Lermoz, to hint to him, lo, שזה אינו אלא מחמת טבע האכזריות הנולד בהם באכילת ever minachai. That the only reason they hate me is because they're eating ever minachai, and that's affecting their characteristics. It's affecting them and making them more akhzari, more cruel, and that's why they hate me. They don't hate me because I'm bad. They're the problem. He's trying to show. אמנם nevertheless עתה במחרתו רצו להראות לו שאדרבה הם מתנהגים במידת הרחמנות. When they sold him, they wanted to show him that again, you're wrong, Yosef. We are not cruel. We do proper shlita. And that's why they brought the goat and shechted it properly and dipped his cloak in it. It's a support for them that they did not eat ever menachai. That they're doing shechita. Why dafka shechita? Why dafka the goat? Because the blood of the goat is very similar to human blood. It says in the Gemara. So that's why they chose that blood, because the whole plot was to show the father that he's dead. And then Yaakov is going to think that an animal ate him. Because if Yosef was really a true tzaddik, Yaakov should never have entered into his mind that an animal would have ate him. Why? Because behold, the Masechet Shabbat, it says the following: an animal doesn't attack a person unless the animal thought that person was an animal.
Wow. Wow.
You understand?
Unless that animal thought that person was an animal.
Exactly. Meaning if the person is a tzaddik, he has the image of God, the animal won't attack him. Which, by the way, was what ended up happening. Because they threw him in the pit with snakes and scorpions, says Rashi, and the snakes and scorpions didn't attack him. Right. There's a famous Gemara Masechet Barachot about this as well. If you remember, snakes and scorpions. Right. According to one opinion, even scorpions attack all the time, whether they tzaddik or not. Whole thing over there. Fine. Rather, you have to say that according to Yosef's deeds, he was deserving of death. That's what the brothers were trying to show to the father. That look, an animal ate him. You thought he was such a good boy. An animal ate him. Right? Animals don't eat good boys. Why? Because it says in Gemara as well. It says in Pesachim Kuf Yudchet that someone who speaks Lashon Hara, which Yosef was doing, according to some, in some avenue he was doing about his brothers, it's appropriate to throw that person to the dogs, says the Gemara. Throw him to the dogs. Wow. And therefore they could have killed him. And on the fact that they sold him, it was only mercy on their part, in their minds. Meaning you are deserving of death, we could throw you to the dogs, what you're doing. But instead of killing you, we only sold you. And therefore, he finally answers his original question of how is it that the goat, that when they brought in the shechted the goat, that was the direct damage to Yosef. The other two, about the arayot, that he said they were doing arayot, he got direct damage, he got tested in arayot with Potiphar's wife. And the other one was, he said they were doing, they were calling the brothers slaves, and he got sold as a slave, so he got direct damage. So now with the goat, what was the direct damage that he received, that they shechted the goat? That through this act, meaning they shechted the goat and dipped his cloak in the blood, showing that an animal ate him, as if it shows that he was a sinner. It made him look like a sinner in his father's eyes. That was the damage he received. That's why they go. וסיפר לשון הרע עליהם, הוא הספיק לשון הרע בתיהם. ובזה יותרץ למה אותו השר היה לוקח בידו דווקא שעיר לקטרג. מפני שהשבטים שחטאו השעיר, לרמוז שיש בידם מצוות להינצל מעשיו. And this answers the question of the angel. The angel in Shamayim, right, that was holding the goat in its hands as a instigation against the Jewish people for selling Yosef. How does it make sense? Because מפני שהשבטים שחטאו שעיר לרמוז שיש בידם מצוות. The brothers shechted the goat to show that they're doing mitzvot, that they're doing shlita and not every minechai. L'yanatzel me'asav, in order to be safe from Esav, like we said before, showing that they have the power to beat Esav themselves. U'lo'achar mitatam, and after they died, after these brothers died, the shvatim, shelo haya b'Yisrael kol kach zechut, and therefore the Am Yisrael was not left with so much merit as much as them because they were huge tzaddikim. Az lakach b'yado hasa'ir. That's when the angel went ahead and took the goat back in Shamayim, showing that they don't have mitzvot to be safe from Esav. That's how he explains the angel. Last point here. You have to check out the following. It says, Al ma shepershu she'ala diba shechashudim ala rayot. That one of the things he spoke, one of the things Yosef said to his father was that the brothers were suspect of doing sins with immoral relations. For that he was punished. That Potiphar's wife started looking at him and tested him, right? The very, very strong immoral test. Says Zera Shimshon, isn't that actually a good thing? Meaning, didn't that whole event of how Potiphar's wife was trying to get him and he resisted, and because of that he's called Tzaddik, right? He gets the nickname of Tzaddik because of that situation. So didn't that whole situation end up being positive for him? It wasn't really damage to him, right? Rashi says, oh, that's how he got punished, because it was a punishment. But Zera Shimshon was saying it's not really a punishment, because of that situation, he, on the contrary, became huge. He gained all his greatness from that. That he merited to become the king of Egypt because of that. Because it says in the Midrash, right, the whole Midrash says the following, that he used his whole body not to do that sin, and for that, Paro dressed every single part of his body after he interpreted Paro's dreams. Next is parasha. Paro anointed him or dressed his body. Right, he gave him a ring. He gave him a special dress. All these different parts of his body. It says in the Torah, different pesukim, all different gold investments that he placed upon him. All for the fact that he didn't use those parts of his body, says the Midrash, for doing the sin with Potiphera, for resisting. So therefore, that whole test, it wasn't really a damage to him, because he used that test to be able to become king. So therefore, it's not really bad. Shlomo says, no, you can settle it the following way, says Zera Shimshon. Nevertheless, he wasn't saved from thought. From bad thought. Why? Because it says in Masechet Sotah, Melamed she'alu shnehem lemita arumim. According to one explanation of the Gemara there, the En Yaakov version, the Gemara says in Masechet Sotah a lot of details about what happened with Yosef and Potiphar's wife. It says that they were literally this close to doing it, to making the sin. They ended up in the same bed together, it says. They ended up so that was all a damage to him. It was a damage to him. It says in Gaon over there that he was about to do the sin with her, and he stopped last minute, and whatever that means, but the Midrash says that he took his nails, all his fingernails and toenails, and dug them in the ground in order to calm his body down from the state he was in. And it says 10 drops of zera, of seed, came out of his fingers and went into the ground.
Hold on, wasn't it his father's image came?
Yeah. So what helped him resist? It says look in the window, and in the window he saw the image of his father. It says in many sources that his face was a spitting image of Yaakov.
Crazy.
Yeah, there was a spitting image. So he remembered. He says, "I'm a son of Yaakov Avinu. I'm gonna do such a terrible sin right now. How can I do such a thing?" and he pulled him, and he
But there were so
controlled
many
himself.
practically-
Now he did get punished for that. 10 drops came out. It says in this parasha at the very beginning, Ele teladut Yaakov, Yosef. These are the offsprings of Yaakov. Yosef was 17 years old, etc., 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 and it says the rest of the story of Yosef. Hold on a second. All you mentioned in the Torah was Yosef. That's not all his offspring. Yaakov had many more offspring. What about the other 11 sons? What about Dinah? What about everybody else? Doesn't make sense. The Torah says, okay, I'm going to tell you the descendants of Yaakov, Yosef, who was 17 years old, who was speaking about his brothers, whose brothers sold him. Hold on, what happens? It just goes down to the story. The answer is this. Yosef was everything. Yosef was all the offspring of Yaakov. Rashi explains one of the meanings is that almost everything that happened to Yosef happened to Yaakov, and vice versa. They were mirrored. Their life was mirrored together. They spent a long time, 22 years away from their father, not doing Kibbud Avayim. They were both supposed to have 12 children. Yaakov had 12 children. Yosef didn't. He only had 2, Menashe and Ephraim. Why? He lost 10 sons for each one of the 10 drops that he dropped in that situation that he had.
Was that the real answer for that?
That is the real answer, yes. He was supposed to have 12 sons. He only ended up with 2 because of that. And many other comparisons and similarities that Yaakov and Yosef have in their lives, which I'm going to tell you in a second. Beseder. So with that, I want to just transition. I want to tell you the following chidush.
Beautiful Zera Shimshon.
We got 8 minutes. I want to tell you.
That was all there.
That was like 5 lines left. Basically, he says more or less what we said. But I want to tell you something on this week's parasha, on a very deep level, based on what we just said about Yosef and Yaakov. Says the Shnei Luchot Abrit. Shnei Luchot Abrit is a very famous encyclopedic, Kabbalistic pirush on all of Torah almost. And Chidushim. He explains to you this week's parasha about Yosef the following. There's a straight line, direct line in Kabbalistic thought between Adam, Yaakov, and Yosef. We've spoken before about the 10 sefirot, the 10 emanations, 10 powers that Hashem infused into the world, that Hashem manages the world with, right? In history, there were people who exemplified each one of these sefirot to the top. So famously, Abraham was Chesed, Yitzchak was Din. The middle one was Yaakov, that's Tiferet. There's also a structure for how they're structured. The Ari talks about it. Yaakov was the middle one. Tiferet, perfection. There's 2 more after that, and then there's another one under that. Straight line. The one straight line below Yaakov is Yosef. That's Yesod. That's number 6. From Chesed down to Malchut, the lower 7 of the physical world. That's Yesod. Yesod is number 6. Yosef is Yesod. Right? That's why every time they're selling the aliyot, and they're selling the 6th aliyah, they say 6th aliyah, Keneged Yesod, Yosef HaTzadik. You've probably heard it 1,000 times, and that's what it meant. It means Yosef is the representative of the midah of Yesod. Yesod means foundation. And he's the word tzaddik is also deeply associated with that sefirah. Each sefirah is also connected to a body part. Yesod is the Brit Milah. Yosef is the Brit Milah. Why? Because he perfected the Brit Milah. Right? He had that huge test with Potiphar and he came out of it. So, that's over there. Adam is the top. Adam was the first person to ever to live. So that's Keter. That's the very top. He was able to see things, understand things that others weren't. Right? So Adam was all the way on top. There's a straight line down to him, Yaakov. Straight line down to him, Yosef. And it says that again, it says that Yaakov was a gilgul of Adam, a part of Adam's soul, fixing part of Adam. And Yosef was the spitting image of Yaakov. And Yaakov was the spitting image of Adam. They all looked alike. There's a straight line. Adam, Yaakov, Yosef. The beauty of Adam was the beauty of Yaakov. And Yosef was again the spitting image of Yaakov, like we said. Adam was created as the fusion of 2 opposites, body and soul, which are a constant war with each other. As one comes up, the other one goes down. Body and soul. Before the sin of Adam, the body was clothed. His body was clothed with something called kotnot or, with an aleph. Aleph vav resh. Or means light. His body was all light, illuminating light. Right. After he did the sin, however, his status became demoted to kotnot or with an ayin. Ayin vav resh. Ayin and aleph, very very similar letters. right? The only difference is that one comes from the throat, guttural, it's more physical. And one is more spiritual. Aleph is more spiritual, Ayin is more physical. So that's what it says. After he did the sin, the Torah says Hashem clothed Adam and Chava with kotnot or, with skin, with hide. Which means they actually got the skin that we have today.
What the eye means
Skin. Right? So it went from light to the skin. That was the demotion. It gave the body the edge, it made the body thick and dense. Right? It drowned the soul. Before, when it was kotnot or with light, the soul was almost purely visible. The body was just a tinge, secondary. When he did the sin, it got reversed. The body became the main thing, and the soul was, you barely see it.
First thing he did, the sin, he covered up that he was naked.
Right. So this is as well. So before the sin, like I said, when you saw Adam, you would see a glow and just a faint outline of a body. But after the sin, all you see is the body, and sometimes you can see the glow of the soul from a very spiritually refined tzaddik. Sometimes. Right? This change was made, why? So that this, It made it so that the seed that would come out of the man became called tipas rucha, a putrid drop, a disgusting drop. It says in Pirkei Avot, remember where he came from. Where did he come from? Tipas rucha, putrid, disgusting drop. Instead of what should have been called something called Zera Kodesh, it should have been Zera Kodesh, holy seed. Once Adam made the sin, it got demoted from Zera Kodesh to Tipas Rucha, putrid drop. You understand? So one of the core purposes of humankind's generations is to repair the damage done by Adam. When Yaakov came around, he took on this task of fixing this. Yaakov started fixing the sin of Adam. How? He elevated from putrid drop up to holy seed, and that brought humankind one step closer to kotnot or, back to the light versus the skin. Right? This is all connected to how a person behaves with his Brit Milah. Yaakov did it first. How did he do it? He didn't waste one drop of seed until he was 84 years old on his wedding night, through which came his first son, Reuven. 84 years old. Everything I'm telling you is sourced. I'm not making anything up, right? This is this is all known things.
No, we believe.
Some people may not believe it. So I have to. Okay, a few more minutes. Also, all of his children, all of Yaakov's children, were something that you can label holy seed, Zera Kodesh. He didn't have any bad children. He didn't have a Yishmael. He didn't have a Esav. So Yaakov was starting to fix it. He's turning the wheel. He's bringing it back by his fixing from putrid. None of Yaakov's drops are putrid drops. They're all Zera Kodesh. You understand? But who's his main offspring? Yosef. As we see this week's parasha. Yosef was direct line from him, right? As we said, Eli Toldot Yaakov, Yosef. These are generations of Yaakov, Yosef, and didn't list anybody else because Yosef was the ultimate. Yosef was the main one. Yosef, but what's the point here? Besides the fact that Yosef was his favorite and all that, Yosef was the one who took the mantle and continued that mission that Yaakov started of fixing Adam's sin, of the Brit. Straight line from Tiferet to Yesod. Yosef took it upon.
That's why he was the main.
That's why he was the main son, because he took Yaakov's mission of fixing the seed, and he continued it. How? Yosef was tested in that area, as we know, by Potiphar's wife. Unbelievable test. No one here could raise their hand and say, I would pass the test. No one here could say that. Absolutely cosmic event. It solidified, at least within the family of Yaakov, the upgrade back from Tipas Rucha back to Zera Kodesh, holy seed. It was a major step in the right direction from Kotnot Or, from the skin, back to the light. Kotnot Or with the Aleph. In fact, it says further, their bodies did not become actually luminescent like Adam, but nevertheless, the bodies of Yaakov and Yosef did reach a serious upgrade. Why? Because if you look in the Torah, Yaakov and Yosef are the only bodies that were mummified. How do you translate mummified in Russian?
The mummies, they would take all their intestines out in order for their body never to decay.
Never decay, exactly. So now I want to tell you how all this is. Just one more minute, Rabbi.
Yep.
I want to tell you how everything we just said here is hinted in the following pasuk. Amazing pasuk. Lefi aniyut dati b'siyad Ishmaya. Look at this pasuk. At the end of the ordeal with Potiphar's wife, when he said, "I'm not going to do it," he refused. What does it say? ותתפסהו בבגדו לאמור שכבה אימי ויעזוב בגדו בידה ויצא החוצה. She grabbed him by his clothing. And she was saying to him, "Lie with me." And he left his clothing in her hand and he ran outside. Next pasuk says, "Vayihi kir'otah ki azav bigdo biyadah v'yanetz החוצה." And it was as she saw that he left the clothing in her hand and he ran outside. Hold on a second. This is redundant, no? The pasuk just said he left the clothing in her hand, he ran outside. And why tell me "Vayihi kir'otah"? And it was in her seeing that she left the clothing in her hand and ran outside. Okay, I understand that happened already. Why is it repeating itself? So the word kir'otah means as her seeing, as she saw what happened. But it's a very non-specific language. And it can be read another way. How can you read this word? Instead of as her seeing, it could be as its original appearance. And it was as its original appearance. Meaning what's the it? His body. Yosef's body. Why? Kir'otah has a hema peak at the end, which means it's a female conjugation, female item. The word guf, body, is a female word. Gufot. You say gufot, it's a female word. Which means as she saw that his body, Yosef's body, returned to its original appearance. Whose appearance? Adam Rishon, Kotnot Or. For a split second, it went to Kotnot Or from Kotnot Or, because what he did, what he overcame. This is why it repeats again. Why? Ki azav bigdo biyadah. Because he left the clothing in her hand. He left the or. He left the skin. The downgrade, he left it in her hand. And walked out luminescent with the or with the aleph.
For a split second though.
Not split second, he
Meaning he started, he did that mission. He took that mission to Tikkun. It's Tikkun of Adam Rishon.
That step.
left with the light. He gave it the skin.
Okay.
But
This is one remez in this pasuk that I think really brings everything together. So Rabbi, we see here amazing parashiyot. Take your time learning them. Have a great week. חזקים ברוכים, רבי חנן בקשה אומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא חזקות ישראל לפיך כבא אליהם תורה ומשהו שאמר, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, שיגדיל תורה ויאדיר.